During the last class, I told you what are forms and what are some of the attributes of the forms. Now, form consists of many elements, and we will just brush through all these elements which are part of the form. Okay. So, let's look at the different elements of the form. The first one is a very simple one, that is the creating a text box. And to create a text box, we start with the input and we give the type of it as a text, and we specify the name and the ID property. There are two additional properties which are of use to us. One is the size and the maximum length. The size will specify what is the width in terms of the characters that the text box will occupy. Maximum length will be the maximum number of allowable characters that this particular text box will take. So in this example, the size is given as 25. That means to say that when it is displayed, it will show a width of 25 characters. But once you exceed the 25 characters, the text that you are typing will scroll to the left hand side, and you can keep on typing up to 50 characters. Once that 50 character limit is reached, the text box will not accept any more characters. So this indicates how many characters will be visible. This indicates what is the maximum number of characters. After scrolling, what will be the maximum number of characters that it will accept. So you can say the width is 5 characters, but you can set the maximum length as 50. That means at a time it will show only 5 characters, but at maximum it's going to take 50 characters. Apart from that, we have some additional properties such as the value. You can specify a default value by setting the value equal to something, or you can even make the form read only. There is one additional property that we can think of using when it comes to the text box, and that is the placeholder. Now, placeholder is used to add a watermark to your form, or in particular your text box. So this watermark will appear when the form is shown to the user, and when they start clicking on inside this particular text box, this watermark disappears. So this is used to add a helper text to the user as to what they are supposed to type when the text box is given to them. So if you have a form, let me quickly press to that. So if you have a form, and if you set the input type equal to text, and then you can set the size equal to 10 and max length equal to say 20. Also, you can have a placeholder, and you can say, if I see this in the browser, so you notice that there is this watermark, and if you click, it disappears. And if I start typing, so I'm going to type the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is the visible. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. If you notice that I'm not able to do it because I will just make it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the next one it's not going to accept. So 20 characters is maximum. So altogether I have 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 20 character maximum. At a time it's going to show the width for the 10 characters. Now this width is browser dependent, and when you start typing, the watermark disappears and it will come back once you remove it. Now this will be helpful to the user, in particular if you are using your forms, and if the forms has to be used on a mobile device. You don't have a lot of space on the 5-inch screen, so you cannot think of putting one extra label on top of it, or one label in front of the text box. In that case, it will be very helpful. So the text or the help text will appear directly on the text box itself, and the user can click there and then start typing, and it automatically vanishes. and it is true even for the password. The next one is adding the label to the element. Now label acts as a helper text when you show the content on a PC, desktop, or on a laptop where a lot of space is available. Also, label is used to associate an element with the helper text. Now, one way of doing the label is just putting like this. So you have a label. Remember, both of them need not be at the same place. You can place a label at a different place. You're just connecting one label with the input field. That's all. Okay, when somebody clicks on the label, automatically the focus will be given to the corresponding control. Now, the simplest way of putting the label is surrounding the element with the label. So you have a item here. You just say label, and then surround this with the label, that is /label. So it contains the element. This is one way of doing it. The other way is, I will just show you the form itself. Other way is, you write the label and you close it here, and then connect this label with the element. Okay. The way in which we connect it, if at all you want to connect a label. Suppose if you write a label here, go here. Let me put a break. Now, if I type a label here, I need to have an ID. Remember, it will not work with the name. You have to have an ID. So let me give an ID as ID1. Any name you can give. I'm not just giving the name. Just use the word for, and then you specify ID1. So this is an indication saying that this particular label is for the ID1. So you are connecting that label with the ID. Even though you notice that in between this label, there is some extra thing, so which are there. So I will just pull out this whole thing here. So I'll just place it here. So this is the item you have there. I can say that label for ID1. You can give anything, but I'm just giving a simple example. So this label, even though it is very next to the input element, it is not connected to this input element. It is connected to some other input element. Now, if you go and if you look at it in the browser, you notice that label is in front of something else, but this label is not for the first input element. It's meant for something else. Now, if the user clicks on this label, you notice the same thing. The cursor goes here. I will refresh it here, and I'm not clicking on the text field here. I'm just clicking on the label here. So when I click on this label, you notice that the corresponding input box gets automatically focused. So that's the use of label. In fact, you can associate a label with a text box and manipulate it in your script, both at the client side in most of the case, and maybe if required at the server side. Next one is the password. So the password is, you are already familiar. When you type the password, the text that you are typing will not be shown. Instead of that, either a star or a dotted letters will be shown. One important thing, when you use the password, type is equal to password. Do not assume that the password field will be securely communicated to the other side. It goes like a plain text. That means somebody can snip the packets and get the password. So when you put the password is not shown to the user. That's the only thing. It's a plain text box, but it does not display the content to the user. So suppose somebody is standing behind you, will not be able to guess what you have typed because it is not shown to the user. But when the password is transmitted from your client machine onto the server machine, it is not encrypted, it is not encoded, nothing of that type will occur. A plain text itself goes to the other side. If you want that password to securely come and reach to your place, then you have to use SSL, and HTTPS. So there is no built-in security for that. It just does not show the content. That's the only thing it does. Okay. The next one is the hidden, which you have already said. Hidden fields are not shown to the user, but it just appears on the form. It is there in the form, but it is not shown to the user. Most of the time, we use it to identify the user. Either we use the user ID hidden in the form, or some form ID or a bill number, something that you don't want to display to the user, but you want it for your calculation or for your program, like the day at which the user has activated. That information is there in the form, not shown to the user, but it is required for your program. So you keep those information hidden from the user in the form. An ordinary user will not be able to detect that there is a hidden field, but if the user is bit intelligent, they can open up the source code and then they can see the content. The next one is the option buttons. Now, sometimes we have a situation wherein we want to accept a fixed number of input from the user. So we have some fixed answer, and we want the user to give only those answers, not something that is over here. For example, in this example, if you expect the user to type the name of the city here, they can misspell it, or they can type the name in a different way, because sometimes the same city can be named in different. Some people use H, some people don't use HN, or some people use E, some people use A for the same word, and both of them are valid depending upon the culture or their language. Some languages have their own way of pronunciation, so the people who are typing it, they may type it in a different way, and it becomes very difficult for you to query those items on the database. In that case, what you can do is you can show some fixed option and ask the user select one from this option. When you have the situation wherein you want the user to select one of the options from the multiple options, you can go for the option button. And the way in which you do it is using the type equal to radio. It's going to show like a radio button, and you have to specify the name. For example, if you want to create a radio button, so you can go over here and you can just specify input type equal to radio. And remember, when you type, you can give a name, say city. So if you type this thing, and if you try to see the output, how is it going to appear? You will notice that it's going to just appear like a dot here, which can be selected. No text will appear by default. So you must be very careful with it. So the text will not be part of it. If you want the text to be part of it, put it either before it or after it, depending upon your scenario. Like for example, I can say Mangalore and then here. So now if you look at this one, you notice that you get the text. You can go on doing it. Now when you go over here, you will notice that I'm typing it very quickly. One among them can be selected. Now how did it is selecting one among them? This option, one among them, comes because the names are same. If you notice the radio button, all of them have the same name called as city. So when they have the same name, they are grouped. If the names are different, for example, if I make it as city 1 here, you will notice that the behavior is slightly, you notice that I am able to select both of them, but these two names are same, Mangalore and Hassan, isn't that it is Hassan? They are same, so I can have a selection between this. So these two are now grouped together, but this one has a different name. That is why it is not part of that group. So it becomes part of the group only if the names are same. Now if you submit this form, suppose if you have a button here and if you submit this form, which value will be sent to the server? The answer is nothing is going to be sent to the server. It will not send Mangalore, it will not send Mysore, it will not send Hassan, because this part is ending here After this, you have typed something which has nothing to do with the option button. If you want the values to be passed, then exclusively specify the value. So go here and specify the value. So let me make it as Hassan and go here and then specify the value, say something. Now when you run this one, what is going to happen? Now if I select Mangalore and if there is a submit button and if I submit it, then Mangalore will not be sent. Instead, the value that corresponds to this Mangalore will be sent. So the value is not shown to the user, but the value is the one that actually goes to the other side. Now, if you want to have a default value, if I refresh it, you notice that none of them is getting selected. If you want to have a default value, then add a property called as checked. Some of them will just take checked, others will take it as checked is equal to checked. Bit problematic. Some of them takes it in that way. Some of them, if the word itself will say that it is checked. Now, you notice that I'm going to just refresh it. By default, Bangalore is selected. Now, if I put this checked equal to checked in front of Hassan, I'm going to cut it and then put it in front of the Hassan here. Okay. You have some interesting things. We have this Hassan being selected automatically. That is, checked means which one has to be checked by default. So that is the thing. And here are some of the examples wherein I'm trying to ask the user what is the mode of payment, like cash, credit, and so on and so forth. You notice that all of them have the same name, payment. The name remains same. The type is a radio button. And one of them is checked. Remember, some of the browser, the word itself, checked, will say that has to be checked. Some other browser expects you to write checked equal to checked. Okay, so it depends. One more example wherein I'm asking the next one is creating checkboxes. Now, sometimes you have a situation like this, wherein I want a fixed answer, but the answer can be more than one. So the user can submit more than one answer for a given question. For example, if I ask the user which are the programming language that you are comfortable with, the user can select all of them. They can select one of them, or they can select in any way. The way in which we do is we say type equal to, in the last case I said type equal to radio, but now I'm saying type equal to checkbox. So what's the difference between type equal to checkbox? Remember, the name is same like that of the radio button, only the type is checkbox. When you have the checkbox, you can select all of them, or you can select none of them, or you can select any of them. So option is yours. Again, you have the same thing. You can just say checked equal to check. So in front of the PHP, I'm saying checked equal to check, and when it starts up, it's going to have this. So when you have the checked equal to check, the user can select all of them, or they can select any one of them. So that's the difference between a radio button and the checkbox. Checkbox means any one of them can be selected. The next one is the text area. Sometimes we want the user to submit more than a line of text, like a comment or maybe an address or this kind of thing. For using or for getting this kind of input, we are using text area. The syntax is very different. The text area is not input. It starts as the text area, and it must have this ending text area. So it must have text area. It starts with text area. It must end with the slash text area. You can specify how many columns. So that is how many characters will be displayed and how many rows will be displayed. So in this case, 5 rows will be displayed and 50 columns. So 5 lines with each line containing 50 characters will be shown to the user. If you type between the text area and slash text area anything here, that will come as the default value. So in this case, your address goes here is typed, and that's going to come in the middle. Remember, it is not a placeholder, or it is not a watermark text. So if you click on this one, it will not disappear. The user has to manually delete it and then make it appear again. So the next one is getting a selection. Sometime showing this kind of options, like showing number of options like this, or using the radio button, it could be a difficult task because you may not have a lot of real estate on your page, and sometimes you may like to have a menu type, that is a pull down type of options. For this we are using the selection list. So in the selection list, the difference is not everything is shown at a time. One is shown. However, you can modify it to have more than one. Whenever you are having a restricted space, you can go for a drop down list box from which the user can select one of the items. The way in which we do it is we start with the select and we give the name and ID, and every option will appear within the tag option and slash option. There are few things that you can do it. Within a selection, you can have multiple items getting selected, or you can have one of them as optionally being selected. So let's look at that one. So let's assume that we have a selection here. So I'm going to say selection, and inside this you can have option. Say so we have an option here. If you see the output, this is how it's going to appear. You are already familiar with that and you can get it. If you want any one of them to be active at a time, so you can say, I think that was selected is selected. This is a bit problematic thing because every browser has its own way of recognizing that selected. You notice over here, if I save this, selected, this is the one that is always problematic. I think selected is, so paste in time. I think that is selected is selected. I think I put it for MBA Excel. So you will notice that by default MBA is getting as the first choice. If I make this selected for something else, so inside this option I am putting selected is equal to selected. You will notice that MSA is the first choice. So you are just giving a choice here. Even though it is third in the list, by default that will be selected. You can have the size that is specified here. You can say size equal to 2. When you say size equal to 2, you will notice that it's going to show up there. Also you can have multiple equal to, again, sometimes the appearance of multiple will make it happen. So in that case you can have the multiple selection. So you can select, use the shift or the controls to select all of them. So if you hold this one and hold the shift and click on the last one, everything gets selected. Or if you hold the control and then you can click on the individual. If you click on again, the selection goes on. So hold the control and either select or unselect it, or hold the shift to make the list of selection. So you can go on doing that. So let me quickly go through them. So this is what it appears. So we have the select here. We can specify the value and the actual text to be shown. This is how it's going to appear. When you click on it, you're going to get the list. And when you say selected is equal to selected, by default, the item which had the selected is equal to selected will be shown. And the user can select any other option. So that's the default option that you're giving. And you can say size equal to something. When you say size equal to 3, if you notice that there are 3 items are there, size equal to 3 means it's going to show you 3 sizes. So all the 3 items. And you notice that because I said selected, one of them which has that selected will be default selected. So it will be in that case. You can modify the size. For example, you have the size equal to 1, size equal to 4. 4 items will be shown. There will be a scroll bar to scroll and select the items. Size equal to 7, it will come. Or if all the items are being shown, then the scroll bar vanishes. So you can have any of the choice. The next one is the grouping. I think I've already demonstrated in the lab. So you can have a option groups. You can create a group of items with a label. So for example, in the lab, what you have done is you had a select and you said codes and you said group, option group, give the label as chemistry, and this is going to appear here. And inside that you put the option values, they are going to appear here. Again, information technology, and you put the group, so you can have a group. The next one is the other type of controls like file submission. If you want to submit the file, you can use the type as file. The other one is the submit button. If you want to submit the form control back to the server, you have the submit. And the reset is if you want to get back the default value. Let's look at each and every one of them. So submit, the type of it is submit. If you say submit, what will happen? When the user clicks on the one with the button with the name submit or with the type submit, the content whatever user has filled in the form will be submitted to the server for the further processing. If you just specify type equal to submit, and if you don't specify any value, by default it's going to say submit query. So the default is submit query. If you want, you can specify something else. I will not spend time on that, how to use the submit. The next one is the reset. If you specify type equal to reset, that means when the user has made some selection like this, and if the user wants to go back to the default selection, using that there are many items are there, and the user has made some changes or the previous values are being shown to the user. If you use this reset button, it will reset back to the default values, whichever value that you have specified, the default selection, default text and everything. So if you want the user to immediately reset the form, just put the reset button, and you don't have to do anything over here. You have to just say input type equal to reset, that's all. So you have to just say input type equal to reset, that's all. If you don't specify the value, by default it's going to give it as this. Now I will just do it like this. You'll notice that by default so by default the MSC was there, and I am selecting NCA and I reset it back, it goes back to the default value. So whatever that you have, suppose if you have a text box here, and if you have specified some value, so let's say I'm going to say value, let's say I'm going to specify a value, okay, say Mangalore or something. So this is the default value which is there. This is not the placeholder. I have not put the placeholder. If you want, I'll show that then. Something was typed here, and I say something was selected. I say reset it back. It comes back to the reset value. If you have a placeholder, instead of directly specifying, this acts as a default value. If you specify a value, that means it's going to be a default value. If you use this placeholder, and if you say and you get the placeholder here, and somebody types on this one, and somebody makes selection, or if you have a checkbox, radio button, everything, it just goes back to the reset. This is just a trigger to the browser saying that get it back to the default value. The next one is the file upload. You are already familiar, you have already done the practicals on it, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. One thing about this file upload is you can have a multiple. There is an option called as multiple. Suppose if you have a file output. So let me put a break here. And suppose if you say input type equal to file, and if you say multiple, there is no need to specify anything there. Now what happens in this case is, this is the HTML5 version. So you have choose file. In the previous case you had the option to choose a single file. Now what you can do is you can select more than 3 files. I have some PDFs here. So I select all of them and I will just say okay, open all of them. And you notice that it's saying now 3 files are there. So you want all the multiple files to be uploaded at a time, you can do it. At the same time, if you have this email input type is equal to email and you want to get more than one email at a time, so they can use the comma separation or a semicolon separation and supply more than one email in a single box and submit it back to you. So that multiple one word here, multiple will make it happen. That means to say that it is going to accept more than one value of the same type. Let me go to the next one. The other one is input type equal to button. Now, type equal to button is used when you want to take the control on your own. So when you have this type equal to submit or type equal to reset, they have the default meaning with the browser. When I do this, type equal to say reset, or if I say input type equal to submit, it means something to the browser. I can't control the way in which these things work. Instead of that, I can have my own buttons. So I can say input type equal to button. In this case, what's going to happen? Now you notice that you're going to get this. You know that submit has its own meaning. My button, when you click on it, nothing is going to happen. The reason is you will have to handle the click event of this button on your own. You will have to write a JavaScript that will handle this click event of that button on your own. So there is a provision for it. Now if you have a form that works only on the client side, like if you are developing a game, small games that runs with the JavaScript, then when somebody clicks on the submit, you don't want that information come back to the server and then you process it and then send back it to the user. It's going to be a terribly painful experience for the user. So what you can do is you can put the buttons, type equal to button, and then write a small JavaScript that will handle the on click. So when somebody clicks on this one, what are you going to do? So when somebody clicks on it, say on click, you will have to handle a JavaScript that will take care of it. So you may have to write a small script here saying that there is a function and just call that function. Say you can say, I think all of you are familiar. Function, say my function, and say so we have a function. You may do many other things from that apart from this. So you can just say when I click on it, just call that function. So JavaScript function that has to be called. So what happens when somebody clicks on this button is they are going to get a alert. It's not coming this side. They are going to get a alert saying that okay, this is actually an alert. It is okay. So it's in full screen now. So when I click on it, you're going to get an alert message, and maybe you can do better than that. So this is how it goes. Again, it's the same example being shown there. The good part of the button is you can have something else inside that button. So you can have an image inside that button to be displayed. So if you want, for example, let me go to the, and let me get a, I think yesterday this was the just this one. I will just paste a image here. And I will go into the button. I have an image, that's all. What I did was I had an image there. So I can just say img. There is another way. src. I think I don't know which is the. You have the image dot jpg. This is not going to work because I don't know which is the form which I'm trying to use it. So you can have like this. I think I can just do it there instead of wasting my time. You have a button, type equal to button, and button, and then you say in between you say image is equal to something. Inside that you can have something other content also. So in other words, you can make the thing appear, or the button appear differently to the user. So that one that is being shown here is this arrow, and the one that is coming after that is a span saying home page, and you notice that that is coming as a home page, and there is a style that will at least make it as italic. So this will come in the italics, and you have a image, you have a span, both are put inside the button. So that is something that you can think of using, because if you're not happy with the way in which the buttons appear, and you want to control the content of the button, anytime you can go and use that thing. The next one is type is equal to image. This is heavily being used. If you look at almost all websites, they don't use the ordinary type equal to submit or type equal to reset. They use type equal to image. The good part about it is you can specify the source. So if you suppose you have a small image, a login button or something. Let's assume that this is that login button. You want that button to appear. This is actually a button. That's a GIF image that is appearing as a button. So if you have done the buttons using Photoshop or using any other photo editing tool, and you want that button to appear, not the one that the rectangular one to appear, then you just say type equal to image. Again, the one that I wanted to show was this one. So you have the input type equal to image, and you have a button. So this is a button, and when I say when somebody clicks on it, I'm trying to show the location. You can do anything, and there is a show location which takes the event that was generated, and it's going to just give you the mouse location where the item was, where the mouse pointer was clicked. Okay. Not really required. I think label I've already talked about. So label is used to associate with something. So you can have a label, and within the label you can have a input box. So because the label is surrounding the input box, it is called as implicit association. So this label is associated with the given text box or anything. Explicit association is you put the label anywhere. In the label you specify for and then specify the ID of the input type. So you are saying that this is the label for a element with the ID this. So in this case, form search is the element ID. So you are saying that this is a label for an element with an ID form search, and you associate it with any input type, so automatically they get connected together. So here is one more example. You have for 1 and ID is 1, and you are associating it with that. The next one is the field set. Now the field set is used to get a controls in a neat visual format. Because I'm running out of time, I'm just going to show you. This is how it's going to appear. So you notice that there is a rectangular box here, and there is a small legend that comes here. So if you want to visually separate some items from one piece to the other, then you go for the field set. How do you do the field set is start with the field set, end with the field set. If you want a legend to appear, legend is something that appears at this top, you put the legend and slash legend. In between, after this you put any items like a text box, a radio button, a checkbox, anything can be done. They are visually grouped together as one item. So when you want to show something to the user, like the subject, all the information about, if you want personal information, one block and show all of them, maybe some other academic achievements, one block and show to the user. You can do that thing by using field set and slash field set, and put the legend. If you want any legend to come, legend and legend. So what is required in this case is only this field set slash field set. It's going to create this rectangular box, and you want this legend to appear, you just put it in the legend and slash legend. In between, whatever text that you are going to type is going to appear here. After this, you put any control of your choice. So you can have the entire form inside it. There is no restriction on that. The next one is the tab index. I think most of you are familiar with the Visual Basic, and in the Visual Basic you have an option wherein user can press the tab to move from one control to the other control. So if you want to achieve the same thing in your browser also, you can go for the tab index. Specify the tab index for the given element, but start it with 1, 2, 3, not with the 0. If you give unlike your Visual Basic, if you give the index as 0, 0 index will come at the end. So you give it in the order. For example, if you notice over here, the tab index for the first one is 2, next one is 1, 3 and 4. So what will happen when the user gets this particular thing? I'm going to cancel this and let me take the risk of getting it immediately and then putting onto the form. So you notice the tab, this is how it's going to appear. Now when I press the tab, you notice 2 is getting selected. If you notice over here, the second item has the tab index 1. I'm pressing the tab now, you notice it is highlighted. When I press the tab again, the tab index 2, which is on top of it, that is the television, gets selected. Again when I press tab, the tab index 3 gets selected. Again, and when I press tab, the other one gets selected. Now, I purposely done this one. But you may have a sequence in which you want the user to move from one item to the other when they type it. Most of them do not like to use the mouse pointer and click on it. If you are giving it, like if you are giving it a bank, you are developing an online bank application, or maybe some other application where the billing is has to be done, they will not be touching the mouse button as such. Instead, they are very comfortable with the keyboard and they will keep on typing. If you just observe how the data entry operators work, they are comfortable with the keyboard because they have learned typing and they are very comfortable with it. So if you are asking them to hold the mouse and click on it when at the busy counters, it may be very difficult for them to do it. So what you can do is you have all the items like enter the customer name, address, this and that. You have a flow in which the items has to be filled. Give the tab order according to the flow. Now this could be a checkbox, it could be a radio buttons, it could be the text box, it could be anything. Now you have a flow in which the tab order has to go. Keep on giving the tab order like 1, 2, 3, 4 in the order in which it has to be done. Suppose if you say this is 1, then this is 2, this is 3, and this one is 4. This is the natural order. And now if I look at my browser here and if I start tabbing on it, you will notice that 1, 2, 3, 4. It will go in the order. I'm not using the mouse, I'm just using the tab order. Okay, so it will be very helpful to the user if you specify the tab order. Let me go to the next one. The next one is the access key. Suppose if you don't have the mouse pointer with the user, in that case, what they can use. I think you are already familiar the keyboard shortcut. Most of the time, when you type and when you want to save it, your hand automatically goes to Control S. So you don't go to the menu and then click on Save button there. So what if you want to provide the shortcut keys? The way in which you do it is you specify the access key. You just say access key and specify the key. However, there is a small problem with the browser, your Mozilla, and that is the Firefox. You will have to use Shift, Alt, and the hotkey. For example, the access key specified here is E. If you want to access that input button, then the user has to use the Shift, Alt, and E. The press Shift, Alt, and E, this particular input box will be automatically selected. Whereas with the Internet Explorer as well as the Chrome, you have to just hold the Alt followed by the key. So there's a small problem, but I think your user will get used to it. Suppose if they are using the Firefox, they know that they have to use the Shift, Alt, and the key has for the activation. So let me again escape it because I'm running out of time. Let me quickly show that thing. So here what I have is two text boxes are there. I have given access key N for the first one, access key C for the second one. Now if I go to my browser, I press Alt N, you notice that, and Control C, Alt C for the second one. I'm pressing the Alt C and Alt N. You notice that the control automatically shifts. And this will be helpful if you are developing a real online application for the user who wants to show that. Okay, let's look at the announcement. These were there in the HTML code, and what are the things in the HTML5 in the